You get if you combine the dark fantasy elements of the Elder Scroll and the post-apocalyptic elements of Eberron. Well, today we're going to be talking about Dark Sun. I'm probably going to mispronounce the name of the world throughout the video because I've seen it pronounced in many different ways. However, I'm going to go with Athas. Basically, the entire point of Dark Sun and Athas is basically, long ago, Athas was a normal D&D world, similar to Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, or like Dragonlance, all that stuff, like lush fields, all that stuff that was roamed by halflings, druids, and wizards, but then they abused magic. One of the biggest things you need to realize about Athas and Dark Sun is you cannot use magic without drawing from something. It's kind of like the law of equivalent exchange from Full Metal Alchemist, if you've ever seen that. Basically, to use magic, you need to give something up. And so these halflings were basically using magic all willy-nilly on Athas back when it was like green and lush and life. And then they abused that, and then boom, all of a sudden the sun has turned black, and the world is now a giant desert. Water is very rare, metal is very rare, there's bug people called the Thri-kreen, there's human dwarf hybrids called the Gnolls. Sorry, mules. Mules are the weird canine demons, I don't know. Why would you want to play a campaign in Athas? It seems very barren and very, I don't want to use the word tribalistic because that's not the right word, but it seems very bare bones. Felt water all over my shirt off camera. For one, Athas is really good for survival campaigns because, like I've mentioned before, stuff like metal, water, wood, plants, all that stuff like natural resources is very hard to find. As long as your players are good role players, awarding your players something like this after, just like pure up water after a quest, that's actually a pretty good reward because it's going to keep their characters alive. Even then, weapons are rare because steel and metal are rare, so you're going to have to go off and maybe have a quest go off where they have to find a meteorite shard to find metal to forge to a weapon. I know, I just stole that from Avatar: The Last Airbender, but let's be honest, everyone steals from Avatar. Even magic resources like magic items are pretty much off the table because they would have destroyed the environment or they would have gotten destroyed in the backlash, which is actually a perfect segue to my second option, or my second reason, which is low magic, low maintenance. I've seen a lot of times where there are some game masters who are like, oh, well, the spell detect languages, ruined the multi-stage, book that I was gonna try to have them decode, or be like, yeah, the Goodberry, spell is kind of overpowered for survival campaigns because now they don't have to worry about food. Don't worry, there is still some of that magical essence, or essence, in the form of psionics. I've already explained how that works because there are psionic subclasses, but even then, if you want to go into Unearthed Arcana and pull out the Psionist class, or the Mystic, or the Scion into your game, basically you don't need to worry about the big problems that magic usually brings into a D&D setting / world. Number 3. The extensive lore. Just like every other D&D world that's been around for multiple editions now, Dark Sun and Athas has so much lore to the point where you can just spend days, weeks, going down a rabbit hole just exploring all of it. However, one of my favorite parts are the Sorcerer Kings. These are kings who know how to use arcane magic like a sorcerer, and they are at the top because they know how to do that. They have these great inquisitors that try to go out and basically do their bidding. And I just think that that's a really cool idea for a big bad evil guy. So you can do research into it, but basically this point is just saying, there's a lot of lore. Go do your own research. Recycle what you don't want and then use what you do want. 4 is the fact that this world has so much content, especially for older editions, that it's not really hard to make a full overarching level 1 to 20 campaign just by using and converting older content from older editions. For example, using modules and putting them into a campaign, kind of like people did with Tales from the Yawning Portal. This point was simple, so let's go on to point number 5. That is the fact that the setting is way more survival focused than any other D&D campaign setting. Usually, a big problem whenever it comes to higher levels is, why am I still adventuring if I have the ability of a god and I can summon food for 14 people using one spell slot? I talked about how Dark Sun gets rid of that problem because, you know, it doesn't have spell casting in the traditional sense. But, you know, the reason why you continue to adventure at high levels is because you want to survive. You don't want to die. Or usually most of the times, if you're in a city, you're probably living a miserable life, like working all the time, not really having any free time. Well, that's been my review of Athas and Dark Sun, at least as a D&D setting. Let me know what you want me to talk about next in the comment section below. I usually will respond to comments. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you all later. I upload. Bye.